Video games. Whether you love them or hate them, you can't deny that they certainly have grown to become a massive industry over the years. We've come so far from the days of ET for the Atari, because now we have epic masterpieces like Red Dead Redemption and God of War 4. I have had what one might call a very interesting video game journey. It started off when I was but a young lad and carried on to this day, with my collection of games growing ever larger and my free time and social life eventually eroding away to nothing. And, if you don't mind me saying, I've played some pretty damn good games in my life, and also some extremely average ones. So, in the spirit of December, leading up to my channel's rebirth new content in the new year, apart from all the Let's Plays I still have to finish, let's count down the top 24 video games I've ever played. Why 24? Well, it's like an advent calendar. You've got 24 days before Christmas, so I've got 24 games leading up to Christmas. But because I like to have series on my channel, this ranking will be stretched over 4 different videos, with the first containing 6, the second containing 6, the third containing 7, and the last one containing 5, because the top 6 video games I've ever played doesn't have the same ring to it as a top 5. Without further ado, let's get on to the 24th best game I've ever played. That was not a fun sentence to say, oh my god. Whoa, wait, what is this? Dark Souls Remastered, the remastered version of the best Dark Souls game on the bottom of the list? Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't enjoy it as much as any of the other games higher on the list. Let's list off the positives first, because you know I love me separating things into categories. The interconnectivity in the world is great, the lore is great, the story is great, and some of the bosses in the game are absolutely amazing, Black Dragon Calamite, Ornstein and Smo, and Knight Artorias being prime examples. However, the clunky gameplay and just how much more frustrating it was than Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne made it hard to stay invested in the game until I really got into the flow of it post Anor Londo. Once I beat Ornstein and Smo, the game really picked up, but before that it was hard to convince myself to keep going. The game just punished me over and over, and I know that's what Dark Souls is about, but it was just even more annoying and it didn't feel fair in this case, unlike Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3, or even Dark Souls 2 in very specific examples. Either way, I'm just really glad I chose to play the remaster instead of the original, seeing as Blighttown in this version was playable, and the graphics were marginally improved. Overall, the game is good enough to get onto the top 24, and I'm very glad for the legacy it provided, but this is as high as it can go. And coming off of Dark Souls Remastered, we arrive at the best Pokemon game I've ever played. That being said, I've only played games from Gen 3, Gen 5 and Gen 6, so that's a bit of a problem. However, just because I haven't played potentially better games, doesn't take away from the fact that I enjoyed this game very much. This was the first 3D Pokemon game I ever played, and I really enjoyed it. The story was a cool alteration of the original Pokemon Ruby, and seeing it in 3D was a nice experience. As for gameplay, it was just pretty much standard Pokemon when it came to combat, but I really did like the new soaring feature you could use to explore the world, seeing as you got to look over the entire region, and the graphics in this game are pretty good for a Pokemon title. The roster of Pokemon was sick, the Megas were great, the post-game was very nice and filled with actual content, and the exploration and legendary Pokemon were cool, seeing as you could catch nearly the entire lineup. However, there's really not that much I have to say about Pokemon Omega Ruby. I mean, it's just a Pokemon game. I don't really have much to say about it that separates it from the others. However, it is a very good Pokemon game, which is why it lands here at number 23 on the list. Here we go. This pick will most likely cause some confusion, seeing as I doubt many of you will have even heard of this title. Before we go further into it, let's establish one thing. When creating this list, I had to balance the games I found the most fun back when I was a kid, compared to the games I find the most fun today, and god damn did I love this game when I was younger. I first got it when I rented it from United Video back when I was about 6. I absolutely loved Scooby Doo at the time, you know, back when it didn't suck, and I really got into this game. However, I never actually managed to beat it, as 6-year-old me kinda sucked at video games. Sadly, they then stopped stocking the game at United Video and I never saw it again. Until I turned 10. I bought the game online, I fixed a few things that were wrong with the disc, and I played it again for the first time in 4 years, and I still really enjoyed it. It's a fun platformer with combat that I actually found enjoyable. It has enemies straight out of the TV show, Scooby Doo or Are You, which is the best in my opinion, and all of the enemies had unique strengths and weaknesses that made the combat almost challenging in some segments. The story was actually fairly good for a Scooby Doo game, even with the anticlimax at the end, and the game takes you from the beginning level to a total of 3 different hub worlds before returning you back to said beginning level. The 3 hub worlds are actually pretty well designed, each hiding secrets, and they all have a unique atmosphere that was a pleasure to experience, with Chinatown being my personal favourite. Each hub world hides secrets, those being food, that you can use to increase your overall health or do other things, and you unlock these new areas in the hub world by finding the corresponding clues and levels of said hub world. It's a pretty good system that was a pleasure to explore, and the levels themselves are all well designed for the time, with tons of items to find, whether they be food or trap pieces. The bosses of the game, while sparse, are all pretty well designed and fun, with Zentuo being one of my favourite bosses of all time, so expect him on my top 50 bosses in all gaming video. Overall, it is a very fun game from my childhood, and while it's no gaming masterpiece, it's still enjoyable enough to land it here. Oh, and did you know that Scooby Doo in his ninja outfit can perform the Kamehameha? That went so far over my head as a 6-year-old child, but I get it now and it's hilarious.
Where's that damn 4th Chaos Emerald?
Going from one controversial rank to another, we now have Shadow the Hedgehog. This game is pretty infamous to say the least. Most people are not really too fond of this game, to put it lightly. Coming out in 2005, it stars Shadow the Hedgehog as the main character, the edgy dark counterpart to Sonic the Hedgehog and one of my favourite Sonic characters of all time. Now, before I played this game, I heard all the horror stories about how it was just so bad that it was one of the worst Sonic games. However, I loved Shadow, so I decided to play it anyway, and I found it surprisingly good. I had expected to hate it so much that there was really no reason I found to overly dislike it. However, let's just clear something up. It's a flawed game. It is very flawed, believe me, but just because something is flawed doesn't make it bad immediately. The movement is slippery, the story system is a bit too similar for my liking, the missions range from cool to just tedious, and half the bosses are just plain bad. However, when the game is good, it is actually surprisingly enjoyable. The bosses that are good are all above average, with one of them being actually great in my eyes. The over-the-top edginess is entertaining to witness, and even though you can't really take the story too seriously.
Where's that damn 4th Chaos Emerald?
The levels are all well designed and cool, with so many different set pieces that are a pleasure to witness, whether that be running around in cyberspace or flying on a dragon in actual space. The combat in the game is also pretty good, with the homing attack being mostly reliable, the different chaos powers being pretty cool and effective, and surprisingly, the weapons are actually well done, whether it be a gun or a street lamp. They're all pretty balanced, there's a clear way to see what weapons are better than which, and the unique weapons are all pretty damn cool, with the Shadow Rifle being my favourite, even though you do have to beat the entire game in order to achieve it. The story system in the game was kinda hit or miss. I loved the ideas of the different paths, but the endings were all ultimately too similar to each other to warrant really playing it through all those times. The true ending did make up for that though, as it was a good ending to the game, but it was a bit annoying that I had to play through the game 10 different times in order to access it. If all the endings were distinctly different from each other, it would have been far more entertaining, but each ending is still tolerable, I suppose. Especially the ones that end up with a dead Eggman, because I don't think many people saw that coming. Oh, and the music was great. I mean, it is a Sonic game after all. Overall, Shadow the Hedgehog is a flawed game, but it's still a very fun experience, and hopefully you guys can understand my controversial rank. Coming up next, Sonic 06 is number 3, and Rise of Lurk is the best game on the list. My introduction to the Dragon Ball franchise was this game, Dragon Ball Xenoverse, and it was a blast. Get it? Because you can use key blasts? Oh, shut up, that one was good. Well, it was mostly a blast anyways, because, you know, you can use strike attacks as well. Okay, that one was bad. I'll stop now. Like Shadow the Hedgehog, this game is flawed to say the least. The RNG is god-awful, the combat is repetitive, super armor is a creation of Satan himself, the armor you can equip to your character will wreak havoc on your stats, and there's probably more that I'm just forgetting to mention. However, just like Shadow, this game is still really fun. It felt so strange and exciting stepping into this game that was centered around a franchise that was brand new to me. And getting to make my own custom character was great, seeing as I love getting to make my own characters in games. The story was a lot of fun to experience, apart from the fucking escort missions. I swear to God, Krillin, you are the most useless motherfucker on the entire planet! And being completely new to Dragon Ball, it was enough to get me hooked and on board with the series immediately. The characters were fun in the historical sequence, the characters back at the time nest were cool to hang out with, and I actually liked the villains. Well, I liked Demigra. Toa and Miro were pretty useless. The combat was pretty imbalanced, but it was still fun for the most part, and I enjoyed the roster of characters, even though I had no idea who the hell most of them were. The parallel quests were kind of hit or miss for me. They were neat ways to get rewards and fun to experience with the different twists they add to the story, but the god-awful RNG meant I could potentially do the same parallel quest for hours on end without getting anything. And don't even get me started on the goddamn protect the character missions again. Overall, while it is an obviously full experience, I still had a ton of fun with this game, and you can imagine how excited I was for the sequel. Of course, if Shadow the Hedgehog made it onto the list, some other Sonic game had to make it here as well, right? Sonic Generations is the third Sonic game I ever played, behind Forces and Shadow the Hedgehog, and it was initially a mixed experience for me. I did like the gameplay and the levels, but it just didn't feel as good as Forces to me. It just felt a little bit worse for some reason. However, that was only at the very beginning. As I got further into the game, I realized just what a masterpiece the game was when it came to platforming and going fast. The levels were all great, with tons of separate paths to lead to the red rings, they had trick segments for extra flair, and the aesthetics of most of the levels were great. Now, I hadn't played any of the games that these levels were meant to be nostalgic of, but I didn't really care. Nearly all the levels in the game were great, and I say nearly because fuck Wisp World Sideways.
Nah. I'm fucking you sideways up!
The classic stages were fine. I mean, they were a definite step up from the ones in Forces, and they actually felt almost not annoying to play. Almost. Goddamn fucking Wisp Planet. The modern stages were easily my favourite though. The feeling of going fast alongside the powerful homing attacks and the multiple paths just felt so good to play, and any time I got to play as Mono Sonic was great. The story was simple, but I liked it anyway. The bosses were sparse, but they were also really kinda hit or miss. The Death Egg robot was annoying, the Air Dragoon was infuriating, and the Time Eater was difficult for the wrong reasons, and Sonic's friends wouldn't really shut up.
Looks like a homing shot. Looks like a homing shot. That looks like a homing shot. That looks like a homing shot. That looks like a homing shot. Looks like a homing shot. That looks like a homing shot. Shut up!
However, Perfect Chaos was a very fun fight against a very impressive foe, and the rival battles were all good. Metal Sonic felt like a good classic Sonic boss battle, and Silver and Shadow's bosses were both amazing, and they will also be starring on my top 50 boss battles of all time. The challenges and different songs to unlock meant that the game still had a lot of content after beating the main story, and to this day I still haven't completed the whole thing. It may not be my favourite Sonic game, but objectively, it might just be the best. Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed looking over some of my top 24 video games of all time. Leave below in the comment section your opinions on my picks and some of your own favourite video games. Also, please remember, all these choices from my list and all the things I say about any game here are all just my own personal opinions, and they hold no ground in the factual world. Numbers 18 to 13 will be out in specifically 8 days, so if you want to stay notified about those, I highly recommend subscribing and checking on notifications by clicking the bell. That's all from me, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.